Compliance is such a particular, seemingly arbitrary word, or rather subject. But despite being so, it plays a huge role in the dynamic between men and women, more so as it pertains to relationships in today's society. So I want to focus on, what leads to that compliance, What makes men so acquiescent that when presented with that coy, disingenuous smile that women are notorious for giving, they become so docile and spineless. I was watching a video where an Indian man, and I mention his race because race undeniably plays a massive role in a person's perception of another person, and ultimately the extent to which they'll tolerate and accept that other person's bullshit. But nevertheless, it was an Indian man, and of course, a white woman. And I'll post the video on the outro. I'm not too sure who the uploader was, but the two were, I believe, deciding on whether or not to pursue a relationship based on the date they had prior to them meeting on the game show they were on, right? At least I think that was the setting. And the Indian guy, being somewhat the stereotypical, overly frugal, ambitious, diligent Indian guy that most people would expect, was saving up for a house that was going to run him in the vicinity of $500,000. And before this, before he admitted that he was ruthlessly saving for such a seemingly lavish house, the woman, blonde bimbo, she wanted nothing to do with him. She rejected him. Straight uphill, no frills, no gimmicks, eat cold hard shit. I'm not going out with you. I can't exaggerate this. About as soon can get, after he disclosed his ambitions and what he was striving towards, she immediately accepted him, completely unabashed, unfazed, unmoved by just how shallow, conniving, superficial, and lackluster, she just proved herself to be. In fact, I'd go on to say she seemed as if she'd known prior to her actions that her actions would be completely accepted and approved by the audience and everyone who'd been watching on national television. Like her behavior was expected almost. Meanwhile, Sadid or Ajit, that's just me being racially insensitive, for the sake of deriving some sense of comedy, out of a rather sad scenario. I honestly don't know what his name was, but, he's sitting beside her, and you can tell, you can sense that he knows exactly what just transpired, precisely what just went down. And he knows, like I've said in previous videos, that he himself isn't even a factor in her affection. I use that word loosely. Her affection towards him. He knows that he was rejected, but his money was accepted. And that you could completely remove him from the equation, replace him with, practically any person on earth, not even a man, but any person, and the outcome would be the same. You could see the maturation of the state of apprehensive compliance and trying to pry itself from behind that fake sham of a smile he had going on. But he went with it. He took her on. At least I believe he did. From the general direction of the situation, the video didn't show the rest. But man, what was behind that? You have to ask yourself. There is a power behind someone who can shit on the innermost comprising essence of a grown man and have him, seemingly against his own ego, not only accept them, but agree to offer up his blood, sweat, tears, and life indefinitely for that person. There's something incredibly powerful behind that. And for far too long, we've overlooked that, right? I know men today that are so-called best friends with other men, right? But would hesitate to let one of the best friends crash on their couch, if they were having a period in which, they were down and out. And I'd argue that many of these men simply wouldn't allow such a thing at all. You know? So so what is it that makes men accept a woman, a stranger, whose sole purpose, and this is understood by both parties, from the start of the relationship is understood, whose sole purpose is to take and take and take from the man, but do so under the guise of love, if you will. This woman openly and quite firmly admitted, in all seriousness, that she wanted nothing to do with this guy as a person. And he essentially said, that's fine, you don't have to like me, just like my money. And let me work my ass off to give you everything you'd ever desire. Let me risk my health to protect you if necessary. And let me do my best to erase every worry you will ever have, while you contribute relatively nothing, and in most cases, absolutely nothing to the relationship. And it was so, and it was done. Yet another man lost to the clutches of a committed relationship. If you can even fix your face to lie and say that it's a true commitment. It's damn sure a commitment on a man's part, though. I'll tell you that. Mind you, this is the guy who had the discipline, the mental fortitude, and the diligence to amass a pretty hefty savings, over the years, and constantly reject that unrelenting temptation of such an indulgence-oriented society, long enough to grow and see a financial endeavor through to the point of promising prosperity and unquestionable security. Yet in the face of a dense, shallow, superficial bimbo, he completely buckled. He betrayed the standards that brought him his success. He compromised his integrity, jeopardized his future. He ultimately derailed his freedom. And so I almost feel obligated to ask, what is behind that? Whatever factor is driving that, it has some serious torque on it. So immediately, I figure it can only be a few things, right? And given how stern, sexually dismissive, and somewhat socially reserved Indian culture is, I immediately jump to the rather negative stereotypes of Indian men. Such as to say that, I'll assume that this guy is just sexually deprived and can't believe that some chick who looks somewhat like, at least, the chicks he jerks off to online, he can't believe that this woman, such a caliber of woman, would be attracted to him, right? Forget that she essentially told him she's not into him. Forget that she essentially told him she only wants his money. But at this point, he's hearing what he wants to hear. He's just that dumbfounded by the situation. And that's very perceptive and subjective. But I imagine, for a variety of reasons, that my account of what's going on in his mind, my account of what, made this guy make such a dumb decision, is not very far from the truth at all. You see, this is what happens when we praise the alphas. I don't want to catch a lot of flack, for this, but it needs to be said. Men who are considered alpha males are the most beta on the planet. What does alpha even mean? You know what? Alpha is really just a man who is so enslaved to pussy that he'll alter his identity, his character, and his way of thinking to conform to the standards of women in a desperate attempt to get laid. Why is an alpha male defined by how many women he gets? Basically the approval of women. An alpha male should be defined by how much bullshit he doesn't take and how much control he has over his life. The day I let females define what pedigree of male I am is the day I start measuring my dick in units of Cadillac Escalades, okay? That will never happen. And if you think, I'm going back to the 18-year-old I used to be who got buff, dropped tons of money on supplements, envied every rich guy, and spent hundreds on, John Varvatos outfits for the sole sake of attracting someone who was of absolutely no benefit to me, no use to me, you've got to be light years beyond out of your damn mind. That's not to say, I've let myself go. It's just to say, I know who I am. I define who I am. And that's not going to change. And I see the so-called alphas doing that same thing today. And it looks so cheesy and try hard. They're conforming to society and women's definition of a man. That's the most non-alpha thing you can do. You will work for her. You will look good for her. You will make her money. You will give her everything she wants. You will be disposable to her. You will lose custody of your kids to her. You will lose half your belongings to her. And you will derive an intrinsic happiness from being used and discarded. And for that, we, society, will call you alpha. Sorry, but that's a piss poor deal. And I'll be a delta male before I pony up like the gullible loser workhorses for women that these so-called alpha males are, just to be in a parasitic, partnership with some broad with tits and a cute face. I mean, let's be honest here. The crux of it is men are shamed into compliance. Men are told what to value. And those values are fundamentally opposed to the well-being of the man himself. That is true, that is fact, that is real, that is final. Why? I mean, look at what a man jeopardizes through marriage versus what he gains. And what he gains is nothing. And that's not me being relative. He literally gains nothing. Now tell me that marriage is a good deal for him. Does he gain kids? No. Who needs marriage to have kids? Does he gain sex? No. Who needs marriage to have sex? Does he gain loyalty? Does he gain status? No. A man doesn't adopt a woman's status. It's the other way around. What does he truly gain then? What does he truly gain? The ability to lose half his belongings? Yes. The ability to be ostracized from his kids? Yes. A massive reduction in freedom? Yes. The responsibility to make his wife happy at his own expense? Yes. The responsibility to provide the standard of living that his ex-wife is accustomed to, even after he has no marital or social ties to her? Yes. The ability to have his kids be used as pawns against him for the financing of his selfish ex's lifestyle? Yes. The possibility of jail if he falls into dire financial straits, and he can't afford to make those child support payments? Yes. He gains all of that. Need I continue? No. You get the gist. But see, what happens when you don't comply? You get labeled as an undesirable. You get labeled a loner. So a loner is a guy who doesn't take on the responsibility of needlessly providing and protecting for a useless moocher. Okay, sign me up. You know? Why is it always assumed that you can't because you don't? That's another thing I have a problem with in society. Why is it always assumed that you can't because you don't? Whenever you don't do something, people automatically assume that the reason why is because you can't. You know, it's assuming it fits their narrative. You know, that is normally to defame you because of your stance. Somehow is in contention with theirs. You know, if you don't have a Mercedes, it's because you can't afford one, not because you don't feel like paying $700 extra a month. You know, for something that gets you from point A to point B, just like $100 a month car. You know, the difference is really at the end of the month, you have $600 more to do whatever you want with, you know, and you're not as indebted to anyone, or if indebted at all. If you don't have a wife or girlfriend, particularly a hot one, it's assumed you can't get one. Because why would any man in his right mind not want to give up his freedom, his life basically, for some narcissistic, paint-faced liability and expense? Shaming into compliance. The goal is to attach a man's pride to a name, an alias, a status that can only be given by women, i.e. marriage, a real man, a catch, an alpha, all of which are statuses and names that can only truly be given by women in today's society, therefore requiring that a man jump through the hoops she sets in order to obtain his pride. But see, a real woman is defined as a woman who doesn't need a man. Yet a real man is defined as a man who comes to sort of the realization, the false realization, that he's nothing without a woman. You know, see, what's the saying? Behind every great man, there's a great woman. You know, or is it behind every great woman, there's a great man? I don't think it's that. You got to get this stuff. This is good stuff. Good, wholesome stuff. Get it. Get your stuff. I'm not just telling you this for my sake. My life is planned. I'm living. I'm happy as a lion in a cage with a retarded pig, okay? But keep chasing relationships with females. Go ahead. Mock my words. Mock my words. You won't come out on top. I'll take my life savings to Vegas and play all day on those odds. It's not made for you to prosper. Understand that. It's not about you. None of it. Zilch, nada, zero, cero, zejo, nul. None of it. It's all about her. And here's the thing, you know, I'm not even averse to it being about her. You know, I'm all for making someone else's life better. You know, but not at the deliberate expense of mine. I will give you the shirt off my back, then go find another one and give you that one as well. But if I sense or even get the slightest hint that I'm being taken advantage of, I will shut that shit down. And it's time men step up and do the same. Stop complying. Stop. You beta bitch you.